Hi everyone, welcome back to our latest episode of Lonsdale Public Library's Book Chat. In case you can't tell, it's near the holiday season, so happy holidays, whichever holidays you celebrate. I was debating about what to do for this book chat as I was flipping through the channels, and I was waiting for game shows, because honestly I'm kind of a game show nut. But as I was seeing all of the shows listed, it brought to mind that there were a lot of shows that I have read books from. And so I wanted to bring up books that have been made into TV series. Now, there is an odd case of TV series that have been made into books afterwards. We're not going to go into those today. So we're going to start off with some books that I have read personally, but maybe haven't seen the TV show. So I'm going to give you my best recommendations on them. The first one is Little House on the Prairie. This is actually the first book in the series, Little House in the Big Woods, by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And who can forget the 9 seasons with Ma and Pa and Mary and little Carrie and of course Laura and Nellie Olson. And it ran for 9 seasons. And if you may remember, Michael Landon, Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassel, Melissa Sue Anderson, these were all names that were very familiar with this. And so the books, in case you haven't seen the show or read the books, follow it's historical fiction, but it follows a life of a small child, Laura, during westward expansion. And a lot of it takes place in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota. In fact, there's a city in Minnesota that has a Little House on the Prairie festival. I've heard it's a lot of fun. I keep meaning to make it there eventually. But the show, as I said, it was 9 series. It was actually 9 seasons, 8 seasons were the main actors. And then the final season is a sequel. I believe all of the main actors and actresses had left, and it dealt with Laura as she had gotten married and some other friends and family members in it. And there were also 3 made-for-TV movies that were made afterwards to kind of tie up some plot threads for when the series had ended. We do have some of the seasons DVDs here as well. So say you want to watch season 1 and work your way through it, feel free to stop in. I believe we have seasons 1, 2, and 3 here in our library. We can request the rest. But that's a really good one to start with for books that were made into TV series. One that surprised me, actually, until a coworker had mentioned it, Orange is the New Black. This is much more recent than The Little House on the Prairies, and this is actually a nonfiction book written by Piper Kerman, who is one of the main characters in the series Orange is the New Black. The series is actually based on just this one book. Like The Little House on the Prairie, there's multiple books in the series. But this show has 7 seasons based on just this one book. And it has to do with Piper Kerman and her 15-month stay in a women's penitentiary for running drug money. But something I was told that the series does really well is that they focus on many of the other characters that she may mention in the book or other characters that the show has introduced into this women's prison. And so it really has a lot of backstories for everybody and a lot of the ways they interact with each other, not just one person's memoir. Again, we have some of the series here. You can rent them either in complete series, or some libraries check them out where you can rent, just 1 or 2 discs at a time, depending on what you have time for. But we can always request them in. And that was 7 series, and the last one was released on July 26th in 2019. So this is a nice one because you can watch from the beginning to the end of the series, unlike some TV shows that are still continuing. For example, Ann Cleeves. This book is called Wildfire, and it is one of the later books in her series, Shetland. And Shetland follows along with the detective Jimmy Perez. It takes place on the Shetland Islands, which are about 100 miles north of Scotland, but they are part of Scotland. There are about 100 islands, only about 20 are inhabited. And so as the show follows Jimmy and his personal relationships with the islanders, with the mainland police that have to come in and investigate sometimes, and with his family. And so the show itself is currently got 6 seasons out, but the latest season is running now. So who knows if there's going to be more or not. I find it a really interesting series. I have watched this one too. It's a little dark sometimes, but still a really good series. And also, if you enjoy Shetland, Ann Cleeves has another book series about Vera Stanhope. And the series is called Vera. And that is currently in 11 seasons and still running. So Ann Cleeves is a great mystery writer because, again, in Vera, the main character, obviously her name is Vera, and she is a police detective as well, and she investigates crimes and, again, has to deal with the islanders and with her own life, her own children, her own biases, and solve crimes. And so they're really fabulous TV series to catch up on, but the books are also wonderful. This one's another oldie but goodie to me. This is the cover to a Perry Mason book. Now, I am a big fan of Perry Mason. Erle Stanley Gardner is the author, and he once promised his fans that the person that Perry Mason is defending will never be the criminal. And so far, I've only read 20 of his over 84 books. It is my goal eventually to finish them all. But out of the 20 books, I can say honestly that so far that's true. That Perry Mason has yet to take on a case where the person he's defending is actually the murderer. And so these were actually written in the 30s. The first book he wrote, The Case of the Velvet Claws, was written in 1933. And then after that, there was a series of Hollywood films. There was a radio show. And then in 1957, the infamous television show with Raymond Burr acting as Perry Mason debuted, and it ran for 9 seasons. And a fun fact about that, Raymond Burr, who, as I said, played Perry Mason, actually auditioned for a lesser role. He auditioned for the role of the district attorney Hamilton Berger. But when he went in for the audition, they thought he would be perfect for the main lead, and there he was. And back when these were being filmed, anybody who was anybody seemed to appear on Perry Mason. They may just be a cameo, maybe only have one line. But if you watch the old ones, you can see people like Daryl Hickman, Barbara Eden, Fay Wray, a lot of actors and actresses. This was just the show to be on. So it's fun to watch the shows. But as I said, the book series came first, and I'm really enjoying them. And talking about older stories, G.K. Chesterton. Now, I know this looks like a really beastie book. I actually have the complete Father Brown stories. Every Father Brown story that G.K. Chesterton wrote. And they're only about 20 pages, but the book is 800 pages long. So that tells you how prolific he was. Father Brown was G.K. Chesterton's most famous character that he created. He is a Catholic priest, kind of a dumpy, nondescript kind of Catholic priest. If it weren't for his garb, you probably wouldn't pick him out of a crowd. And the wonderful thing about the way he solves mysteries is that he doesn't solve them with dizzying intellect or with tricks or anything like that. Father Brown solves them because he understands human nature. He understands how people think, and so he's able to piece things together. He often helps out law enforcement by not telling them what happened. He doesn't want the credit. He doesn't want anybody to say that he solved them, but he helps them out by guiding them and maybe leading them to the answer without giving them the answer. In fact, he very much likes to stay in the shadows. And he works with a detective, Flambeau, who actually was a criminal first. And he apprehends Flambeau a few times in these, or he discovers that Flambeau committed the crimes. And these were written, as I said, in the early 1900s. There have been multiple TV shows done on them. There was one in Austria in the late 60s, early 70s. There was one done in Italy in the early 70s. There was one done in Germany in the early 2000s. So he's very well-liked around the world. The most notable one that I know of, though, was done in Great Britain in 2013. So far, it's ran for 7 seasons, And so we're not sure if they're going to have another one. Now, something to note about all of these books that I've mentioned. Just because they're based on the book doesn't mean they follow the book. Sometimes there's more seasons or more episodes than there are stories. Sometimes a story may take multiple episodes. Sometimes they're forgotten completely. But these are just a small sampling of books that have been made into TV shows. Right now, very popular, Bridgerton. There's the Virgin River series, Game of Thrones, Outlander. So many great series that started off as books. So if you're looking for something new to read, I would highly recommend looking at what you might be watching on TV, because there's a good chance that we can find you a book that would fit with you. Have a great holiday season, everyone, and we'll see you later.